Good evening, everyone. Late Night Mega here, and tonight we're playing Blue-White Eldrazi with Elder Deep-Fiend. And so the way I kind of came up with this deck is I wanted to play a deck that ran Thought-Knot Seer and Stubborn Denial. I really like Stubborn Denial in concept, and I really want to make it work out better. So I kind of took a template from my white-black Eldrazi processors, and I kind of made it blue-white instead. I also decided I wanted to run the Elder Deep-Fiend as well, give him a go in Modern, so that's where this deck kind of came from. And so there's a lot of interesting synergies here with the creatures, but first let's get into the spells here. So we've got Paths, Stubborn Denials, Mana Leaks, and a couple Remands. And it runs a lot like the blue or the white-black Eldrazi processors, but instead of the discard and the tons of main deck graveyard exile, we have counter spells instead. I kind of like the white-black version a little bit better, but this deck does some interesting things. So you have some enters the battlefield guys with like the Snapcaster, the Wall of Omens, the Sky Spawner, and the Kitchen Finks, and then you can blink any of those guys with Eldrazi Displacer. It also gets a bit silly when you like sacrifice your Kitchen Finks for the emerge cost on Elder Deep-Fiend, and then the Kitchen Finks comes back, and then you blink it with the Displacer, so then it comes back again, and it loses a counter, and you just gain a bunch of life. So that's a little bit silly. Yeah, the Deep-Fiend, he's interesting in Modern. 5/6 creature, pretty big, pretty beefy, puts a lot of pressure on quickly. And one match I had against Tron was they assembled their Tron, but they had to tap like most of their Tron lands to do it, so they couldn't do anything with Tron the turn that they got all of them down. So then he's like, okay, I'm gonna untap my lands, and then I'm like, okay, at the end of your upkeep, Elder Deep-Fiend, tap all your lands down. And then you didn't get to use Tron that turn, and then I smashed him for 5 plus whatever else I had out there. And so there's interesting interactions in Modern with the Elder Deep-Fiend. And the Eldrazi Displacer. But overall, this was kind of a one-night stand sort of deck. I played this for one night just because I wanted to see how well this worked, how well I liked this feel. Very creature-heavy for my tastes. But, I enjoyed the synergies in it, but this isn't something I wanted to heavily pursue, which kind of got a glimpse of the mana base. I don't own any Adhikar Wastes. That's the blue-white pain land that can also make colorless, make all 3 of our colors, and make this deck happy. So I improvised heavily, and I just kind of played what I had. Same with the Displacer. I only owned 2. I wasn't going to go out and get another one just for a deck that I may or may not want to play again anytime soon. But I wanted to try it out, have some fun with it. It did okay for itself. But overall, not entirely my style of a deck. But yeah, it was fun to play. So what I ended up doing for the mana base was just kind of played some of the lands I had. And I had Aether Hub, which is a one-shot color fixing. Unfortunately, there's no other ways to generate the energy in this deck. So it is, each Aether Hub is strictly a one-shot color fixing, which did become a problem when you've got like double white for Kitchen Finks or double blue for Elder Deep-Fiend. You have a lot of colored stuff in this deck. So it really wants Adhikar Waste. Same with the Crumbling Vestige. But the reason I went with these is because, where is it? I wanted to use a couple Reflecting Pools in this. So Reflecting Pool lets you tap for 1 mana of any type that a land you can control could produce. So this means with an Aether Hub or a Crumbling Vestige out, the Reflecting Pool not only taps for white or blue, but it can also tap for colorless. Of course, Adhikar Waste and Reflecting Pool would accomplish the same thing, so if you have those and you want to try out this deck, go for it. Rest of the stuff looks very much similar to the white-black Eldrazi processor mana base, except there's a couple Sanctum of Ugins here, which those are kind of interesting because you can cast an Elder Deep-Fiend and then go search yourself either another Elder Deep-Fiend to keep your opponent tapped down next turn, or any other colorless creature you would like. So you could get a Displacer if you wanted, or Thought Not Seer. I've done that a couple times. So yeah, there are some interesting synergies to be explored. It was a fun little deck. Sideboard, I get to play Rest in Peace and Stony Silence because I don't really care too much about my own artifacts or my graveyard, so we get to run those. Leyline of Sanctities, a bunch of hateful white enchantments in here. Echoing Truth, because I really didn't know what to do for a sideboard with this, and Echoing Truth is always a nice little catch-all answer. Engineered Explosives, Blessed Alliance, kind of standard stuff you guys have seen from me time and time again. Then I threw in a couple of Reality Smashers. This was against like control decks where Wall of Omens might not be as good. Same with Eternal Scourge. Those would come in against basically control or slow decks, or things where I'm trying to kill my opponent quicker as well, so the haste on Reality Smasher can be nice. So yeah, kind of a short deck tech this time, so I thought I'd take the rest of this to, well, I'll give you guys a preview of the next couple decks we play are going to be pretty off the wall, and they're going to do some really interesting things to harass Tron players, because a lot of Tron decks started popping up at my local meta, and a lot of Burn too. And so the next couple decks are really going to harass those decks in very amusing ways. But I wanted to take the rest of this time just to kind of go over, like, I have so many different ideas for modern decks that don't even come to fruition, either because, I don't feel like I can build a good deck or a competitive playable, but I have so many ideas that I just want to try building that I just haven't gotten around to. I've got a list of gotta be like 30 of them here. We've got a Grixis deck with Nicol Bolas Planeswalker, Bant Super Friends, Esper Super Friends, which I've come really close to building a few times, Sultai Super Friends. I know a lot of these are variants of the same thing. Bant Dragons, Grixis Dragons, Jeskai Dragons, Esper Dragons. As far as the dragons go, I've come pretty close to, I think starting there, you'd see a Bant Dragons deck first, just because I like the Ojutai and Dramoka Dragon Lords, especially paired together. But, I just haven't gotten around to it, or I haven't felt that it'd be quite strong enough to really pursue. Or I haven't found how to make the right combination of stuff that I would feel comfortable even taking to an FNM yet. Or I just haven't had time to do all this. Let's see what else is on this list. A Gelectro deck, for those of you who know what that card does. Actually, it was in one of the decks on this channel. I believe Tokens or Bust. But I want to get a deck with that as an all-star. Isochron Scepter, that's a card I'd like to work with. Vidalcan Shackles, something more successful than I've worked with it in the past. Probably like a Blue Moon sort of deck, but I don't own Blood Moons at this time. But if I do, that's the first thing I'm going to build with them. A blue-black, possibly splashing green Infect Control. That's an interesting idea. Mainly around the... was it the Phyrexia? The Phyrexian Knight, I forget his name. The 2/2 with Infect and First Strike and protection from red and white. Of course, now that Fatal Push exists, that idea has gotten worse than what it probably already is. Pyromancer's Goggles, that could be a fun card in Modern. Teamer Super, another Super Friends variant. A deck based around enchantments. Um, Probably like blue, white, or Bant. I tried brewing a list for this, but I just could not get one that even looked remotely less than awful. So it's kind of something I kind of dropped. I spend so much time just like brainstorming deck ideas that don't ever come to pass, but then you see these that I've taken to FNMs and other events that have either done well or at least done something. Um, a deck based around Devoid. There's Herald of Kozilek, a 3-mana 2/4 that reduces colored or colorless spells you cast by 1. I think that would be there's got to be something there interesting to pursue. Of course, again with the introduction of Fatal Push, that idea has gotten worse, and so we're probably not going to be seeing that anytime soon. Um, Mono Blue Eldrazi, which is actually what this deck kind of started out as. I had a whole deck list for this brewed up. I sleeved it up, did some test hands, and I hated every single test hand that I was drawing. And so if I'm goldfishing and not liking the hands that I'm getting without even having an opponent, there's no way I'm going to end up taking it to even an FNM. And that's how it kind of went from a mono blue deck into this blue white deck that we have here. Oh, Black White Eldrazi Processors is on this list. I actually did that one. Here's another one, Metallurgic Summonings. Card I just recently used in Standard, upgraded my blue-red control deck there, and I absolutely loved having that Metallurgic Summonings on the field. It was insanely fun. Fun for me, not so much for my opponent. And I want to explore that potential in Modern as well. 5-mana enchantment, you could say that all day. That, oh, it's a 5-mana and it doesn't do anything the turn it comes out, and you're dead before then because it's Modern. Well, I've also run Elspeth, Sun's Champion, and that's a 6-mana card that I'm supposed to be dead before I get to cast. So clearly we're at the point where, any sort of card that I want to cast that's big, if I set my mind to it and really build a deck with it in mind, I can make it so it happens. A Cruel Ultimatum, I've made that happen. So Metallurgic Summonings, ooh, with Cruel Ultimatum, that'd be interesting. But I do want to explore that idea somewhere, sometime. I don't even know what colors that deck would be. Some sort of an energy artifact control deck. Not entirely sure how this is going to turn out. If it's going to be like another 5-color control deck with energy as sort of like the mana fixing with it. Yeah, anytime I try to brainstorm this just in my head, it feels like I'd be taking a lot of deck slots for cards that are just going to fix my colors, but not progress me as far as a control game plan, especially in the early turns, because you have to be able to have control stuff ready at the get-go in the Modern format. So I don't know if that's ever going to pan out or not. And what else do I have on here? I skipped something. Blue-white artifact control, which actually that's going to be our next deck. However, it's not going to be blue and white. It's going to be something very different. But yes, there will be some artifact synergies with our next deck. Actually, there's going to be a lot of weird synergies in our next deck, but that will be for next time. So this has been Late Night Mega. Good night, everyone, and thanks for listening to me spend a lot of time rambling about these different deck ideas that may or may not be coming down the pipeline sometime soon.